Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the FPL scope and my team selection video for Game Week 34. And this is a pretty big game week for a lot of people. A lot of you guys are using free hit, so I'm going to show you what I think I would do if I had a free hit this game week myself. I'm not going to use my free hit because I did use it back in Game Week 29 to not so good results, but I think this game week is still going to be pretty good for me, but I'm still also a little bit worried compared to everyone that is free hitting. But we'll take a look at my team for this upcoming game week. We'll take a look at the ideal free hit team for this game week, in my opinion at least. And we'll also take a look at the manager of the week from this past game week 33, and see what he can do for game week 34 as well. But before we get into all of that, let's take a look at what I did in game week 33, which was not that good for me. I had a red arrow for the first time in a little while, down from 8.5k to 15k, almost doubled my rank basically. But yeah, I'm still in a pretty good position, but I went from being 4 points ahead of the top 10k to being 10 points behind the top 10k. A lot of that damage is just because I went with Salah as captain over Haaland. Probably should have just gone with Salah, or should have just gone with Haaland, which was the easier choice. But obviously the best choice would have been to have gone with Cole Palmer, who was absolutely amazing in Everton. I got 26 points without captaincy. So if I had Captain Palmer, I'd be in such a good position, but that's the same case for everyone else. Everyone had Palmer. No one, like barely anyone, captained him. The only ones that I've seen that captain Palmer were people that captained Foden, and I've got Palmer as the vice captain. So if you're one of those guys, congratulations to you. But yeah, Palmer has just been a big miss this past couple game weeks. I've captained Salah for like 4 straight game weeks, and if I had captained Palmer instead, my rank would be so much better. But either way, that is my own fault. I just have too much of an affinity towards Salah. And yeah, I captained him for Game Week 33, and I'm most likely going to captain him for Game Week 34 as well. And that'll be my final game week captaining Salah, potentially ever, if he leaves for Saudi Arabia in the summer. But we'll get to see that. But either way, Game Week 33 was pretty much not that good for most of my players. Usually I have everyone performing except Solanke and Gusto being bad, and this week it was kind of the opposite. Everyone kind of flopped except for Gusto and Solanke being good, apart from Palmer obviously, who's absolutely amazing every single game week. But yeah, in goal, David Raya, I had the double up with Arsenal defense against Aston Villa, and for 80 minutes that looked pretty good. They didn't really concede too many chances. They had 2 pretty big chances against, not big chances, but big opportunities to get a goal for Aston Villa, with Watkins hitting the post and also Tielemans hitting the crossbar and the post on the same shot. Tielemans' shot went into the crossbar and the post. But both those shots were not the best chances, so still, Arsenal defense were holding up pretty well. But then obviously towards the end of the match, when Arsenal tried to push for the winning goal, which they should have had in the first half, they managed to concede twice. Watkins scored again. He's another big miss in my team. I wish I had him still. I brought in Darwin instead, and he blanked, of course, as he usually does. Or not really usually. He has been decent for me, but he's been underwhelming as well. But either way, Arsenal didn't keep a clean sheet, so yeah, they were out the window. Aït-Nouri didn't start. All of a sudden, he was out injured. So I got Sabarni in instead. He got 1 point. That's also not too good. Gusto finally kept a clean sheet. Happy to see that for Chelsea against Everton. Big 6-0 win for Chelsea there, where Palmer did most of his damage with his 26 points. So I got some help from the Chelsea guys on the Monday at least. But from the rest of the team, not so well. Solanke is the only one that performed, as I said. He scored against Man United. Could have had a penalty towards the end of the match as well, but the referee decided to pull the VAR decision was to pull the penalty into a free kick, basically. Change the outcome from a penalty to a free kick because they deemed the foul to be outside the box, which I think was, I don't know, a bit dubious, but still, I don't know. I usually just like to stick with the original decision there rather than take VAR into the picture, but whatever. Solanke got 7 points, and that was basically the only good thing about my team. Haaland obviously scored as well, but I wanted him to fail because I didn't captain him when most people did. So he ended up with 10 points from a goal and an assist against Luton, which is kind of crazy that he got a goal and an assist, and that was only worth 10 points, but that's what happens sometimes with strikers in this game. But he outscored Salah, who did basically nothing against Crystal Palace, had a really huge chance to score and missed it. But Salah has just been a big disappointment on top of all the Liverpool players, basically. Darwin as well, really unhappy with him. He is just not performing well. He had a really big chance to score, missed it, hit it straight at the goalkeeper, as he usually does. So yeah, pretty tired of Darwin. And Son as well was pretty disappointing. He played against Newcastle. I thought Spurs were going to score in that game. It seemed like it would be a pretty high scoring game, but he didn't. Instead, Dubravka kept a clean sheet, and he's on my bench with 6 points. So After bringing in Raya in Gaming 32, I've had Raya getting 6 points last week and Dubravka getting 9. Lost 3 points there. And this week, Raya got 1 point and Dubravka got 6. So 5 more points there. So I've lost 8 points from getting Raya in as my goalkeeper. But hopefully for Gaming 34, which is where I have a double game week for Raya and Dubravka has a single game week, that's the game week where I'm going to be actually getting some return on that investment, hopefully. But yeah, disappointing all around. Garnacho also with 4 points on the bench. So another guy with the bench points there. He got subbed off at the half and got a pretty dubious assist call for him at the same time, basically. So, but yeah, he didn't get into the squad either for me. Saka also didn't really perform for Arsenal. He's also looking pretty bad lately. Not so sure about him. I obviously have him for the double game week, but after that, I'm pretty sure both Salah and Saka are going to be gone from my team and not coming back again, despite being in my team for most of the season so far. But yeah, that's basically it for my Game Week 33 score. 2,077 points in total, and that is worth a 5.4 or 15.4k ranking. 10 points by the top 10k, so I'm still within the reach of top 10k, which is always my goal in FPL. Still looking pretty good, but yeah, could have been better. Not the best game week, but that's what happens sometimes. You can't have good game weeks every single game week. But let's take a look at what my free hit draft for Game Week 33 looked like and how that scored. And off the top, I just want to mention one thing about the free hit squad that I didn't really take into account last week because I was in a bit of a rush because I was traveling to London last week. So I made my free hit draft pretty quickly, and I didn't realize until after the video was made that I'd actually gone way beyond like the team value that most people have. So this team is actually way too expensive to be able to afford it. So I couldn't have been able to afford this team, but the team scored 76 points, better than my own team at least, 16 points better than what I got myself on the free hit draft. Some of that is just because I had Haaland as captain for the free hit draft, because I try to like give other people the best advice for if they are using their free hits. And personally for me, it was more like a affinity towards Salah thing that I went with him as captain rather than Haaland. I was hoping to have a differential guy there with Salah as the differential. I always like to go with him as a differential captain. And it didn't work out. But for everyone else, I said that Haaland is probably just as good, or if not better, as like of a captaincy pick than Salah, and that ended up being correct. So he helped getting to 76 points with this team. But like I mentioned off the top with this team, it's too expensive. So actually, if I had done the cheaper team of this, or cheaper version of this team, I would have Foden rather than De Bruyne, and that would have meant that Foden didn't play and Gordon would come off the bench with 17 points. And I probably still would have had a too much of an expensive team. And the other downgrade I could have done there would be Virgil van Dijk swapped out to someone else and put Reguilon in the starting lineup, or Aït-Nouri in the starting lineup, to be fair, and then Reguilon coming in as an auto sub for Aït-Nouri, which would have given me 21 more points on this free draft as well. So I think it's an okay draft, I guess. I got Isak at least, and I had Gordon on the bench. I said he was a really good pick for anyone this game week. And Palmer, obviously, with the 26 points. Flecken coming in as the goalkeeper. Also nice to see him getting 7 points off the bench with Kelleher not playing anymore. And that was basically it for the team. 76 points in total. All my favorite differentials, Chris Wood, Kevin De Bruyne, and Rico Lewis, basically didn't score anything at all. Guardiola was the better pick compared to Lewis. So obviously, if I could have gone with an even more expensive team, Guardiola would have been the guy with 12 points rather than Lewis with his 2 points. So yeah, not the best free draft either. Not the best game week for me in general. But let's take a look at someone who had a pretty good game week. And that is going to be the manager of the week this week. And that is 007 Len. I don't know what your real name is, but that's the name that's mentioned on the FPL scope, or the FPL, not the FPL scope, but on the FPL website. And I assume it's a he, maybe it's a she, I don't know. But they ended up with 104 points, which is obviously a massive score. And as you can see, as it always is, or usually is with Manager of the Week, it's down to having the best captaincy choice. Because, yeah, picking the best captain hasn't really been easy the last few game weeks. Basically, the template captains haven't scored the most out of that particular game week. And this game week, it was actually Palmer that was the best captaincy choice. 26 times 2, 52 points from the captain is super, super, super good. Almost outscoring my whole team by himself. So super good to have Palmer as captain, obviously, as I've mentioned a couple times now. Gordon with 17 points, obviously really good as well. Haaland with the 10 points here as well. Ben White got the clean sheet because he was subbed off earlier before Arsenal conceded. So he ended up with 5 points. And Dubravka in goal with 6 points. So Manager of the Week, 2 transfers, which were kind of needless, I guess. Trippier to Aït-Nouri, it makes sense as like a value standpoint. Trippier is injured, obviously, But I think Trippier is going to be a pretty important player to have if he's back fit, at least. If he's back fit for Game Week 35, I think it's going to be a really, really nice differential because Newcastle are really, really good currently at the moment. And I think Trippier can get a lot of points going forward. But Aït-Nouri was out injured, so obviously couldn't really foresee that happening. So I think it was a good transfer, but either way, didn't use Aït-Nouri anyway, had him on the bench. So kind of a needless transfer. And then Doughty to Sabarni, again, not really the best use of money, but I guess this was more trying to get the best possible team for Game Week 34. And now Aït-Nouri seems to be injured for Game Week 34 as well. So unlucky with the transfers, but pretty lucky with the points. Palmer captain was probably not lucky because you have actually done transfers this week, so you probably did make that decision yourself. I know some people as well had Palmer as captain because they had him as captain the week before and forgot to change it, but I don't think that was the case with this team. So hats off to you for picking Palmer as the captaincy choice because he was the true differential captain that was really, really good. Not Salah, who I was hoping to get some points from at least. But yeah, really good score. Overall, it's 1,912 points total, which means it's a rank of 813k, which is pretty good. Inside the top million is a pretty good rank to have. Game week rank of 108k this game week as well, which is also pretty good. Looking at the future, however, a lot of chips used. Wildcard has been used in Game Week 21. Triple Captaincy used in Game Week 15, which is kind of interesting. Don't really see that much these days. It's usually Game Week 25 you see from Triple Captaincy when most people went with Holland. And then free hitting Game Week 29 for a pretty low score, just like I did myself, basically. But that leaves you with a couple issues going forward. You have pretty much just like a Game Week 34 team ready to go, but after that, it's going to be a bit more difficult. You have Gordon at least, who's going to be a good long-term pick. Palmer, obviously, who's going to be a good long-term pick. Watkins is always good, so he got 7 points as well, scoring against Arsenal. I should mention that as well. He's just been fantastic. Didn't mention that, but yeah, overall, the team's still looking pretty good. Double Arsenal defense. Saka should also be pretty good for the end of the season as well, so you're in a pretty good position, but it could have been better if you had more chips left, obviously, or if you had like a more balanced team for navigating both game weeks, not just Game Week 34. But let's take a look at your plans for Game Week 34. Obviously, I don't know your plans personally because I haven't asked you if you're watching. But this is what I would do, at least, if I was in charge of your team for this upcoming game week. And one of my other plans here was potentially to do Watkins to Cunha, because I think Cunha is, or would have been, a really good value prospect going forward in FPL now. But now Cunha is out. He's not going to play in the double game week, it seems like, in Game Week 34. And that severely hampers his potential. And I think you could just keep Watkins because he has a really nice game against Bournemouth at home. And I think he can score a lot of points in this game. And not that many people are going to have him at all, because anyone that kept him are going to free hit him away most likely this game week. So I think he's going to be a pretty nice differential actually at home against Bournemouth. That should be a decent match for Watkins. But the transfer I would do would be Hudson-Odoi to Eze. I know Eze is one of the most popular players this week, and for good reason. I would bring him in if I was on a free hit. Yeah, I would bring him in if I'm wildcarding in Game Week 35, which I'm doing myself. I'm bringing in Eze, that's a spoiler. And I would also bring him in if I was in your shoes, because I think Eze is just a really good player. And Crystal Palace are looking really good now with Ulisse back healthy at the same time as Eze. Haven't seen that much this season, but whenever they've both been healthy, they've both been really, really good. And Crystal Palace have been really, really good. And now under the new manager, Oliver Glasner as well, I think it's going to be really, really nice times for Eze and those guys going forward. So that's the transfer I would do, Hudson-Odoi to Eze, and that would mean that you have to bench someone, and I think I would probably bench Sabarni out of these guys, even though he has a double game week, and we have the likes of Palmer and Watkins and Haaland with single game weeks. But I think if Haaland is fit to play, which is still a question mark at this point, maybe he's fit to play, maybe not. Pep Guardiola was pretty vague when it comes to Haaland's availability, but I think I would just start him still. I would bring an essay for probably Sabarni and just have Sabarni on the bench in case Haaland doesn't play. That could very well happen. But otherwise, I think your team is looking really strong for this game week. Dubravka and goal against Crystal Palace away. Not the best fixture, I guess. Crystal Palace have been pretty good going forward. And as you can see from Essay, bringing an Essay this game week, I think he has a very good chance of scoring in at least one game. Maybe it's just against West Ham and he doesn't score against Newcastle, but I think both games are pretty good for Eze. So Dubravka, not the best goalkeeper, or Areola, not the best goalkeeper. Obviously, both are playing against Crystal Palace away, which is kind of interesting as well. But Dubravka has shown the last 2 game weeks that he doesn't really need the best fixtures to get good points either, because he's gotten 15 points the last 2 game weeks. So he can be a nice surprise once again, potentially, Gabriel and White from Arsenal in defense, I think that's really, really strong. Arsenal defense is really good. Wolverhampton are struggling with so many injuries. Hwang Hee-chan is going to play 45 minutes at most. Cunha is out injured, as I mentioned previously. Pedro Neto is still out. So yeah, I think Arsenal will keep a clean sheet in that game. So I think Gabriel and White are pretty good for that reason. They probably concede against Chelsea, but again, it's Arsenal. It's the best team in the league, best defense in the league, I should say. So I think they have decent chances of keeping clean sheets in both game weeks. And we know both Gabriel and White are good going forward as well. Gabriel on set pieces and Ben White in open play. Both can get assists or goals in either of the matches, and they can also get clean sheets in either of the matches as well. So I really like the double Arsenal defense for you. Sabarni, like I mentioned, I think I would bench him because I think both Aston Villa and Wolves will score, but maybe not Wolves now that they have so many injuries. So I think Sabarni is still a decent play. Doesn't have much of a goal threat, as we know, but he did score a couple game weeks back when a lot of people were depending on him. So maybe Sabarni steps up again because he's been a pretty nice differential guy the last few game weeks. Mykolenko for Everton, I think that's a really good pick as well. At home to Nottingham Forest, should be a really nice game. At home to Liverpool, not so good maybe, but still, it's a double game week. You still get 2 points from playing Liverpool, and hopefully, for Everton's sake, they don't concede too many goals either against Liverpool. Speaking of Liverpool, you also have 2 Liverpool players, Salah and Darwin. I think they are fine players. I think Salah is a really good player, obviously, because I think he's going to be the best captaincy choice this week still, even though he hasn't been that impressive the last few game weeks, but he can always get a penalty, can always get a cheeky assist. He's a pretty good assister, or one of the best assisters in the world, in my opinion. I still think Saka is a pretty good captaincy choice as well. Saka, again, double game week for an Arsenal player, should be pretty good. They don't have anything else to play for now. They need to win out in the league, basically. They need to win the rest of their matches in the Premier League, so I think Saka is going to play both matches. And I think against Wolves, especially, where Arsenal are going to be have such a huge advantage against a pretty depleted Wolves team, I think Saka's going to be a pretty good option that game week. Palmer against Arsenal away, not ideal fixture, but again, playing Palmer is not really the worst thing in the world, as we've seen a couple game weeks this season. Palmer has been absolutely amazing. He's the highest scoring player in FPL in total, along with Watkins, who's also in this team. So yeah, having to play Palmer is not a bad thing. Obviously, it's not going to be played too much by free hit teams, but it's still, even in one of the worst matches you could possibly have as an attacker against Arsenal away, it's not really that big of a downside to start Palmer. Haaland, obviously, going to be a question mark if he's going to play or not, but if he plays, I think he's going to be a really, really nice option who's going to outscore several double game week players. He plays against Brighton. That should be a really easy match for Man City. So if Haaland starts that game, plenty of point potential there for Haaland and the rest of Man City as well. So I don't think it's too bad to have Haaland, and you also have Gordon, if need be, on the bench, or Aït-Nouri if he's ready to play as well on the bench. So I think you're in a pretty good position there as well. Darwin I mentioned, and Watkins I also mentioned, but yeah, Watkins against Bournemouth at home. He scored and assisted against Bournemouth last time. Could easily do that same thing again. Watkins is just a terrific player who's been in terrific form all season. So important for Aston Villa, and most people should probably have kept him in FPL. So at least this guy did, or this woman did, I guess, depending on which gender you are, or whatever. Let's not talk about that. But either way, that is the manager of the week, and my plans for this week if I was this person. Hudson-Odoi to SA, and then that would leave you with almost enough, I think, close to enough to go from Saka to Son next game week to get the Spurs player with the double game week and Son next week, which could be a good tactic. You potentially might have to downgrade one of your Arsenal defenders as well. Maybe Ben White to someone like Udogie, for example, to afford it. I'm not quite sure if it makes, if you have enough money in the bank to do Saka to Son straight up, even with Hudson-Odoi to SA, but I still think it's something that's worth doing. So keep that in mind for the next game week, and then try to just build the best possible team for Game Week 37, picking up the best players for double Game Week 37 on the way to that game week, which is the final big double game week of the whole season. So those are my plans for your team going forward. Good luck with that, and good luck with the rest of the season. You're going to finish inside the top million now, I'm pretty sure about that. Maybe you can push on to be in the top 500k as well. That could potentially be in your grasp. So yeah, good luck for the rest of the season, and especially this game week, as hopefully you'll be following my advice and bringing an SA for Hudson-Odoi, but we'll see what you do. By the way, let's take a look at what I think is the best squad to have in this upcoming game week, because this is where I'm going to reveal my free hit draft for this game week, and it is a bit different. I have one pretty big differential from everyone else, one player that I haven't really seen mentioned that much, and that's because he's been pretty recently cleared to play this game week. So let's take a look at my free hit team for game week 34 if I was to use a free hit this game week. So this is the free draft basically that I've gone for. Let's just start with the goalkeeper and move our way up towards the rest of the team, the attackers in the end. Henderson in goal. I think Crystal Palace have two okay chances to keep clean sheets, two difficult matches on paper, I guess. West Ham and Newcastle have more than enough qualities in their squad to score, but at the same time they also have more than enough qualities to have a lot of shots and still have Crystal Palace keep a clean sheet in this game. So I think Henderson, he's basically like the goalkeeper position isn't that important, and I've used up all my Arsenal spots, used up all my Liverpool spots, and that doesn't really leave that many good goalkeepers. I think Alisson and Raya are the best goalkeepers to have if you just chose like a goalkeeper by himself. But seeing as I have tripled up on those teams already, there's not much to pick from. After that, I wouldn't go with a Bournemouth goalkeeper. I don't think they have good chances of keeping clean sheets. Jose Sa is a decent choice, I guess, but again, I think both Arsenal and Bournemouth will score against Wolves, so yeah, I would probably just go with Henderson instead. I think he is the best remaining goalkeeper. Pickford is also obviously someone else that I could choose. He is on the bench. Really good home match against Nottingham Forest at home, and we've also seen Everton keep clean sheets against Liverpool in the past as well. That could also happen this game week potentially, so maybe Pickford is best, maybe Henderson is best. I think both those guys are pretty good goalkeepers to have. They could save a penalty potentially as well. You could be really lucky with that, but yeah, I think those guys are really the best of the bunch when you don't consider any Liverpool or Arsenal players, because we have a lot of Liverpool and Arsenal players obviously with double game weeks in 34 that we're going to mention now basically. So in defense we have one Arsenal defender and two Liverpool defenders, which is kind of strange seeing as Liverpool have a really good attack and Arsenal have a really good defense this season at least. It's just down to the minutes played, basically. This comes down to, because I really like the midfielders from Arsenal more than the midfielders from Liverpool when it comes to playing time. And defensively, I think Liverpool will be much better now with Alisson back in goal. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold and Virgil van Dijk are two really good players to have in a double game week. Trent is obviously not like a certainty to play both matches. That's the big talking point now in FPL circles. Is he going to be able to play both matches? I think personally there's a decent chance he starts both. I think it's a really good chance he starts one of them. And with that in mind, if Trent Alexander-Arnold played 60 minutes in one game and 30 minutes in the other, I think he has pretty good goal scoring potential, because he's on set pieces obviously, he's really attacking. He got fantasy assist at least in the Atalanta game, winning the penalty for Liverpool. And I think that could happen again. So I'm just going to go for the upside there. I think Trent just has more upside than someone like Robertson, for example. I prefer the Arsenal midfielders to the Liverpool midfielders, so I would rather have double Liverpool defense. I also think they have better matches in terms of keeping clean sheets. I think both Fulham and Everton have shown at times this season that they can score. Sometimes they score a lot of goals, but other times not so much. So I think Liverpool have decent chances of keeping clean sheets, especially with Konate back fit, Alisson back fit, Virgil van Dijk is starting, Robertson is back, Trent Alexander-Arnold is most likely going to play at least one game. So I think they have decent chances of keeping clean sheets, so I think the double up in defense is pretty good with Liverpool if you're on a free hit. Obviously, Gabriel is always one of my favorite players to have in FPL, and yeah, I'm just not going to back against him. I know Ben White is probably more attacking in open play. I know Saliba is probably more nailed. Some people have speculated that Gabriel might be rested against Wolves. And I think that's just going to be the case with every single player, basically. There's always going to be that small doubt in terms of them playing both matches as a starter, basically. But I think more often than not, people start the games when they are nailed on, usually, first 11 players. So I think that's going to be the case again, mostly for most of these players. So yeah, I'm going with the upside there with Trent, the safety of Virgil van Dijk, and just the brilliance of Gabriel, basically, because I really like Gabriel Magalhaes. In midfield, Salah and Saka are pretty much given in pretty much any team, even though they have been pretty poor form recently. We know what they can do. We know their history in FPL, how good they've been in the past. I think they're both really, really good. I think Salah is still the best captaincy choice, but I do think there are two other really good captaincy choices this week as well, which I'll get to pretty soon. Saka, like I mentioned previously, Arsenal have nothing else to play for than the league now. They need to go all out, and Saka is going to be the main man for Arsenal offensively, mostly. But there's another Arsenal player that I also really like, and that's Kai Havertz. I think he's been really overlooked the past few game weeks in FPL. He's been playing as a striker sometimes, plays as a midfielder sometimes, and I think he has a pretty good chance of playing both games from start. Probably one or potentially two games as a striker for Arsenal when he's in midfield. I think he's a really, really good pick, and I prefer him over Odegaard for that reason. I would probably go with my fellow countryman usually, but I think Havertz has just been in terrific form lately. And I think he has a lot of good chances to score for Arsenal, as he did this past game week against Aston Villa as well. He had several chances to score, was put through on goal, but then didn't manage to score. But usually he tends to score for Arsenal and has been really good in the not so distant past, as I was about to say. So yeah, I really like to double up in Arsenal midfield, and I also like to double up in Crystal Palace midfield, because I did mention Eze, how I think he's a really good player this week. He's going to be one of the most brought-in players, both in terms of free hits and in terms of free transfers this week, and for good reason. Eze has been fantastic. He is potentially the penalty taker for Crystal Palace, and the other potential penalty taker for Crystal Palace is Olise. And in this draft, we have both of them, because I really like both of them. Obviously, you could go with someone like Munoz in defense instead. You could go with someone like Mateta in attack. Mateta is going to be a pretty popular free hit pick this game week as well, but I just really like the upside of Olise. I'm a huge fan of his. I think it's been terrific. Obviously, the one thing is the fact that he's back from injury recently, so maybe, again, he doesn't start both games. That could be a possibility here, but I just really like the upside of both Eze and Olise. They have been really good in the past, and if they both can be fit and play as they've done for Crystal Palace this season, when they play together, they've been absolutely fantastic, and I would just not like to go without either of them, basically. So I'd really like to have both of those players, and that's why I've included them both in the free hit draft for Game 34 as well. Then in attack, we have another double up, not just double up in Arsenal attack, not just double up with Crystal Palace attack, but also double up with Bournemouth attack, which is kind of interesting. That's not something that I've seen by that many people. And Solanke is the third captain's option, I think, this week. I think Solanke he's obviously going to be picked by a lot of players. He's the default striker who's going to be the best, potentially. Now, like Cunha's injured, there's not that many targets left to choose from. You have Darwin Núñez, obviously, for Liverpool, but who knows about his playing time? That's a bit of a question mark. Other than that, you have Mateta, obviously, but I have the triple Palace players already with Eze, Olise, and Henderson, so I can't fit him in either. So yeah, Solanke, I think, is just a default really, really good striker this week. Aston Villa and Wolves, two teams that can concede a lot of goals. And I think Solanke is going to be a really good option, potentially a good captain's option if you are really feeling really frisky. And then we also have Antoine Semenyo from the same team from Bournemouth. He's been out with an illness recently, but he's back fit, he's ready to play. And last double game week for Bournemouth, back in game week 28, he was actually the standout player, and he could be the standout player again, because he's been really good this season and been, just terrific. So price is not really an issue with this team. You have more than enough to have a really good team this week on a free hit. But I think Semenyo has a lot of good qualities, and he could be a really nice differential this week, especially seeing as I'm struggling to find another striker that's going to be really good alongside Solanke. So why not choose someone from the same team, could help him score and also be assisted by Solanke, and just have a really nice double up in two pretty good matches, I think, for attacking players. So Semenyo is my favorite pick other than Solanke in attack. Then on the bench, you have Pickford, obviously, which I mentioned as one of the potential goalkeepers. Tarkowski in defense as well, or Mykolenko, depending on who you prefer, or Branthwaite if Branthwaite is just fit to play. All those guys have pretty good chances of keeping clean sheets, obviously, against Nottingham Forest, and maybe they get a clean sheet or potentially a goal against Liverpool as well. So I like all those players. So Tarkowski first bench. Second bench is Ollie Watkins, the only single game week player this week. If Haaland was fully fit, I think I would probably go with him, but I don't have enough money either way to bring in Haaland, so Watkins is a nice consolation price, I guess. He's my third favorite striker, I guess, when I can't choose Cunha or Darwin or Jesus, basically, in this team. But I don't really think Darwin or Jesus are that interesting options either, because they are a minutes risk anyway, quite a bit more than some of the other potential minutes risk, like Havertz, for example. I think Havertz is going to play pretty much guaranteed more than Jesus will play. But yeah, Watkins, I think, is a pretty good player, and then Aït-Nouri as well. Just want to have him there just in case. I think if he's ready to start in one of the games, or in both games especially, he's going to be really good. He's really attacking. He's been really good lately. But even if he misses the Arsenal game and is back for the Bournemouth game, I still think it's a decent option. So he's also someone you should consider, at least on this free hit in Game Week 34. So this would be my free hit suggestion. You have other players that you could potentially think about. I think Ben Burton Diaz is a really good shout. I've seen a couple of people have him in their drafts, and I could go with someone like Burton Diaz rather than Olise and have Mateta rather than Semenyo. That is also another potential thing you can do with this team. There's a discussion on whether you want to have Trent or you want to have Robertson, if you want to play it safe or not with that. You could also mix and match when it comes to Liverpool attackers versus Liverpool defenders. Diogo Jota is probably the midfielder from Liverpool, or the attacker from Liverpool outside of Salah that I would be interested in. I think he has the capabilities to do damage with 30 minutes off the bench. And he could also start. I think Jota will start one game and come off the bench in the other. So I think Jota is actually a pretty good option. So you could go with Jota rather than Havertz or Saka if you're feeling really frisky. And then have double Liverpool defense or double Arsenal defense rather than the double Liverpool defense, as I've done here, and just have Virgil van Dijk. And for what it's worth with Virgil van Dijk, he's also, this might be superstition, but he's also been really good in double game weeks for some reason. I had him the last time Liverpool had a double game week and he scored for me. So yeah, I just quite like Virgil van Dijk in this team in general. And as you'll see with my team, I'm going to have a decision to make on who to bring in as a Liverpool defender potentially. So yeah, Virgil van Dijk, definitely a good candidate there as well. But you could also, and Trent is also a good candidate, but you can also go with just one Liverpool defender, either Virgil van Dijk or Trent Alexander-Arnold, and have Jota in midfield instead. But yeah, I just prefer to have it this way, I guess. So this will be my free draft for Game Week 34 if I was to use a free hit, and it will be interesting to see how many points it scores, and it will be interesting to see how many points it scores compared to my own free Game Week 34 team, and see how it does compared to the Game Week 29 team and the free hit that I did there. Because I didn't really gain that many points from the free hit in Game Week 29, but we'll see what ends up being the best strategy at the end of the season. We're going to have a video about that towards the end of the season as well. But let's move on to my current plans. It's been a lot of content today. I've been in London for the whole week, so been busy with other stuff. Haven't been able to do much when it comes to videos. I made one weekly wildcard draft video for you guys earlier in the week when I was in London. Hopefully this is a bit better quality, at least when it comes to the picture and the sound. Maybe not the content. It's a bit jumbled up because there's a lot of things to talk about. And the final thing to talk about is basically the most important thing for me, at least. And that's my own plans for Game 34, basically. So this is my current team. I have 2 free transfers, 0.8 million in the bank. Don't really think money will be an issue because my one transfer that I'm going to do for sure is Heung-min Son to Eze. Now that Eze is basically confirmed to be fit for this game. Pretty simple transfer, seeing as I have my wildcard for Game Week 35. I'm going to wildcard Son back next game week, so I could easily sell him and bring him back. The drop in value I don't really care that much about because I think my wildcard team will be pretty good when it comes to value regardless. So Son out for Eze is the move that I'm going to make for sure. And then I have 2 options, I think, on what to do with my second transfer. Or I could potentially do both transfers as well and do a -4. But my one thing that I might want to do is Gusto to Trent Alexander-Arnold or Virgil van Dijk. So I need to choose between those guys. Do I want to go with Trent with the upside, or do I want to go with Virgil van Dijk with the security? Currently, I'm leaning more towards Virgil van Dijk, as I saw the comments from Klopp after Trent played 72 minutes for Liverpool in the game against Atalanta in the Europa League when they went out. He said that Trent was completely tired and he shouldn't have played that many minutes at all. So maybe I just want to go with the safety of Virgil van Dijk, who's been actually a better player for me this season than Trent. I did bring in Trent in around Game Week 20 or Game Week 19, I think. And he scored a lot of points, 8 points in the first game week I had him. But then after that, he was just an injury mess for the longest time. And Virgil van Dijk ended up being a better defender for me when I brought him in a couple game weeks after that. So again, just sentimentally, maybe I just want to go with Virgil van Dijk, but I also am really enticed, or is that even a word? I am really interested in bringing in Trent as well for the upside that he has. So yeah, either Trent or Virgil van Dijk in for Gusto could be my transfer as well. Gusto is obviously also another player that I can bring in back in my wildcard in Game 35. I would only lose 0.1 value in him as well, so that's not that big of a deal. I also mentioned in the free hit drafts that I really like the look of Olise this week. So if I have a good, strong feeling about Olise playing both matches from start, I could sell Garnacho and bring in Olise, but at the same time I could also just have Garnacho and start him, because I think I might have to do that now. I was hoping to have all my defenders fit and are ready to play, and not having to choose either Garnacho or Palmer for my starting lineup, but that's going to be one of my decisions this week, what I'm going to do with my starting lineup basically. But yeah, let's again start with the goalkeeper and see what I do from there. Raya is the clear choice in goal, obviously, with the double game week. He's going to play over Dubravka, but hopefully he outscores Dubravka this time. Gabriel, like I mentioned a couple times now, really like him. Sabarni, sort of have to use him now. My plan originally was potentially to sell Sabarni for Trent or Virgil van Dijk and start Aït-Nouri and Branthwaite, but now that both Branthwaite and Aït-Nouri are doubts for this double game week, I'm more sort of in need of starting Sabarni unless I do the transfer potentially. I'm not quite sure who I'm going to bench still, because if I bring in Eze and Virgil van Dijk, for example, I have to bench 2 of the players because obviously I would bring them in. As you can see, Gusto and Son are on the bench. So if I switch them out with 2 players that I'm going to start, I would have to bench 2 of the players in my starting lineup currently. And I think I would lean towards benching Sabarni. You also have Haaland, who's a doubt as well, so he might not play. But Sabarni, Garnacho, Palmer, or Haaland. It's basically between those 4 guys. 2 guys with single game weeks, Palmer and Garnacho. 1 player who's significantly better than the other in terms of Palmer, but he also has a significantly worse fixture. Garnacho basically has the best possible fixture, and Palmer has the worst possible fixture. So Garnacho versus Palmer is also kind of an interesting discussion there. But I might also bench Haaland if I feel like he's not going to start. If we get some team news that he's not going to start, especially, I would bench him instead. So yeah, several things I can do with this team. But I think I'm leaning towards benching probably Palmer and Haaland, which sounds crazy seeing as they are 2 of the best players in the Premier League. But I would probably bench those guys for Eze and Virgil van Dijk. But maybe I'd bench Garnacho rather than Palmer, especially now that Garnacho was subbed off after 45 minutes last time, and like those tweets about Ten Hag. Not so sure about him starting anymore, so maybe I would just want to go with Palmer. He's the safer choice. He's the more highly owned choice, so maybe I'm going to go with Palmer as my starting player there. But yeah, just depends what I do. Obviously, if I do the SA and Elisa transfers and I don't do the Gusto to Virgil van Dijk transfer, I would just start Sabarni and Branthwaite and Gabriel in defense. Perfectly fine with doing that as well, even though Sabarni and Branthwaite aren't ideal players to have. I don't have them in the free draft, for example, because I don't think they are ideal, but at the same time, they could get some points as well. So yeah, I quite like Sabarni and Branthwaite, but not 100% sold on them. Aït-Nouri as well. Not so sure about him starting. It seems like the comments were that he could potentially make the bench for the game against Arsenal, so that sort of deletes him as a potential starting option over Sabarni or Branthwaite, seeing as they have 2 matches most likely. Branthwaite, for what it's worth, when it comes to him, the quote about him is that he was involved in light training for Everton, and immediately I thought, oh, he was in light training and everyone else was in full training. That's not good for his chances of starting this week. But the whole team was in light training. The whole team was training lightly. So who's to say he wouldn't have trained fully if it was full training as well? So I think Branthwaite is going to start. I think he's ready to start. And that means that he's probably ready to start for my team as well. So it's most likely Sabarni that I'm going to bench in my own team. So I think Branthwaite, just for everyone, to clear that up for everyone basically, he did participate in light training, but it was not because he had to, because he couldn't participate in full training. It's because everyone at Everton were performing light training this week, or this past training session that they had at least. So yeah, Branthwaite is ready to start. Salah, Saka, I've mentioned several times already. They are pretty obvious starting candidates for me. Maybe Solanke is my vice captain. I don't know. Or maybe Solanke is my captain. I still think I'm going to go with Salah as captain. Especially after these 3 or 4 game weeks now where I've had him as captain and he hasn't really performed that well. Would just feel really bad if I captain someone else when he's the obvious captaincy choice this week. So yeah, Salah captain, Garnacho or Palmer. That's the question is again, who do I choose out of those 2? Or if I just sell Garnacho entirely and buy Olise instead, that is also a possibility. Haaland, probably get some team news potentially. Who knows about the team leaks nowadays, if you can trust them, but he is potentially a player that I can use. If he starts, I think he's going to be a really nice option who I would recommend everyone starting. So yeah, remains to be seen if he's starting or not, and if we get leaks or not, and if we can trust those leaks or not, basically. Darwin, I just have to stick it out with him, I guess, because yeah, I don't think he's going to start both games. I think he's going to start one of them and come on as a sub in the other one. Not so enthused about Darwin in general. It's just been a troll for me the whole season, basically, as he usually is. Just not a big fan of Darwin in general now. But still, I just got to keep him. He has a double game week. He has really high upside, obviously, as he always has. But yeah, hopefully I'll be proven wrong by Darwin and he shows why he is worth the money and worth the hype and all that stuff. But yeah, not really too much faith in Darwin from my side, at least. Solanke, on the other hand, I have a lot of faith in. I'm pretty happy about him. He scored 7 points last game week as well. I'm happy about that. And he has 2 pretty nice fixtures, so I'm pretty happy about him as well. And on the bench, obviously, Dubravka, who I'm hoping will not outscore Raya this week, and Aït-Nouri, who I think is also not going to be the best option, seeing as he's most likely going to have just one starting game against Bournemouth at most. So So yeah, other than that, Gusto and Son, who I'm looking likely to sell, both of them. So that's basically my team. And my final question to you guys then would be, what would you do in my position if you bring in SA and Virgil van Dijk, for example, which is what I'm currently leaning towards doing? Who would you bench out of the current starting lineup? You have to bench 2 guys out of the 11 players you see in the starting 11 there. For me, currently leaning towards benching Sabarni and Palmer most likely. Or maybe Palmer and Haaland, like I mentioned. But anyway, that's my final question to you guys. What will you do? Who would you bench in this situation? And how do you think my Gaming 34 team will score compared to my free hit 34 team as well? That's going to be really interesting to see. That's basically it for the video. This has been 40 minutes. Been blabbering on, been a bit jumbled together. Haven't really been in an FPL headspace. Haven't been in FPL mode this week too much. So hopefully I can get into the swing of things. Next week I'm going to be back with several more videos. I'm going to try to aim for 5 videos next week, Monday through Friday, a video every single day. So if you like the thought of that, if you like this rambling mess that I've done in this video today, as you can see, after a week in London of being tired. If you like that, then like the video and subscribe as well if you like any of what I just mentioned. And with that, I'm just going to leave you there. I think it's been too long. And next week, I'm going to be back better than ever, hopefully. But until then, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.